Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
All right, we're live. Luke Thomas, not officially live, actually. Luke, I know you're a professional broadcaster, so I don't want to trick you. But I actually, this is a big day for you, man. So for people that don't know, I know you host a show weekdays 4 to 6 on Channel 93, SiriusXM Rush, the Luke Thomas Show. I just got done listening to you. You did an extra 2 hours today.
Yeah, 4 hours total. I'm not used to that.
Did they tell you mid-show that you were going long, or was that always planned?
No, normally it's Brian Stan's show 6 to 8, but because my show is 5 days a week, and the presser was going to start during my show, they just said, "Hey, why don't you take it all the way to the normal end of his time slot?" So I went from 4 to 8 p.m. So, but an hour of it was the press conference, and I got a lot of listener calls, so I didn't do necessarily all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and so you're speaking of the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor press conference. So at the time of this recording, they just finished up basically the first of 4 press conferences for, I guess, that they're doing this world tour. And I think you even said you're going to the third one?
Yeah, so they were in LA today. They're going to Toronto tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Wednesday the 12th. And then Thursday the 13th, they're going to be in New York. I'll be there for that one. And then they finish up in London. But, of course, I won't go to that.
So what does that mean that you will be there? Are you going to be able to ask any questions? How does it work?
Yeah, I guess we'll see what they let us do. But based on what happened today, my understanding is they give you some time with Leonard Ellerby, the CEO of Mayweather Promotions. They give you some time with Dana White, and they separate you into like print crew. So if you work for like the LA Times or the New York Times as a print writer, and then if you do like audio and video, you're in another crew. Then they'll just, one group gets one, then they switch. And it'll be the same for Conor and Floyd. One group will get Floyd first, and one group will get Conor, and they'll switch. So I guess because I'll be there with SiriusXM, I'm going to be doing audio and video. So I'll be there in the multimedia group, I suppose. But we'll see. Who knows? And
which fighter, or I should say anyone there, who are you most anticipating talking to?
Floyd Sr.
Yeah. Why? Because it's honesty or what?
Yeah, because I was saying this before, What does boxing have that MMA really doesn't? A lot of things, but old men. There's no old men in MMA because it's so new. I mean, you have guys who are older in their 50s, but you don't really have a lot of old guys hanging around. And Floyd Sr. is an old guy, and old guys have a lot of experience. They got big mouths, and they don't really care what you think. And so, as I understand it, Conor certainly more than held his own in the Battle of the Dozens, but I'm really dying to pick his brain about what he thinks about Conor's boxing. I really would like to know.
Do you think he'll actually get technical with it, or will he think he's giving away secrets that they know?
It's my job to see what I can pull out. Normally in the past, he's not given me much, but this is an unusual circumstance where I mentioned today on the show, which I'm sure you heard, I couldn't tell necessarily if Floyd was just reacting out of anger or if he was fighting fire with fire in the way that he normally never talks to his opponents like this. They don't talk to him like this either. It's much more statesman-like. It's the Senate, not the House, right? In that kind of way. But because of that, because it's so unusual, I wonder if he'll be a little bit more forthcoming. I remember I asked him at the Mayweather-Pacquiao press conference, just tell me in your mind, what is Pacquiao's best performance? Even if you think he's going to lose, what's his best performance? He goes, when Marquez stretched him. So that time I didn't get a great answer, but the challenge is there, and I want to try.
Oh, speaking of Pacquiao, people think he got robbed on this when he fought Horn, and it was on ESPN, so a lot of people actually watched, shockingly. Normally, I think boxing numbers, especially pay-per-views, in my eyes, you'll tell me the truth, are way down compared to what – I'm thinking like Tyson era when everybody wanted to see the fights. But what do you think of that Pacquiao fight? Did he get robbed?
The answer is no, he didn't. And I know it's a hard one to face. Now, you're asking me who did I score it for? I scored it 115-113 Pacquiao. But this is a big belief I have, and I'm adamant about it, and it's one of these problems that is so big that I think everyone just says, well, it's just going to be what it is. The way we do judging in both boxing and MMA, because it's basically the same way, more or less. We borrowed our system in MMA from them, with some adaptations, but it's their style. It's a 10-point must system. Is unhelpful at best and downright fraudulent at worst. Think about what they're asking you to do. People can't believe this, but it's true. Sometimes when you watch a fight in person and then you go and watch it on TV, it doesn't look and feel the same. So when people at home are asking themselves, how can they possibly have come to this conclusion? There are some things that are outside the rational boundary, but there at least is wiggle room in there. And remember, the judges don't sit together. One sits here, one sits here, and one sits here. They're not all in the same place. So you have spatial bias, number one. Number two, they have almost no technological aids. There's very little to no instant replay. They might have monitors, but we don't even know if they're looking at them. And they're asked to make split-second decisions at the end of rounds that are turning all their cards without any ability to use technological aids. Imagine you played football. Can you imagine if the officiating crew couldn't review a play? How bad would it be? It would be terrible. It'd be absolutely brutal. And so if you think about it in that context, they have to make quick decisions, no revision, limited technological aids with spatial bias, and then whatever their own biases are that they have, whether they're aware of them or not. It is shocking to me that we don't have decisions that are worse. So the 116-111 for Horn, that was bad. And the 115 to 113 for Horn, I don't agree with, but that's within the rational boundaries, and there were two of them. Case closed.
So what if you got me thinking there if I'm sitting up, like sitting at the table ringside looking up, first off, your angle is weird to watch a fight. You can't really see everything. Their backs might be turned, whatever. What if you took those judges, you put them each in their own isolated room with a TV monitor with no sound?
So it's funny you bring that up. It's funny you bring that up to that very specific idea. New Jersey is experimenting with this. New Jersey is trying this. Here's what I mean. It's regulated by the government, and they can't change the rules. So as it stands today, fights are being judged as they always are, right? Judges are ringside, 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. But they're also getting guys who are normally judges, who aren't working that night, or at least not working that fight, and they're taking them backstage. They're not letting them hear the crowd. It's soundproof, and they're watching a monitor, and they're judging, and they want to see to what extent they're getting different scorecards. We don't know the results of these experiments, but I'm dying to see what they come up with.
I mean, that seems like it would be – nothing's ever going to be perfect when there's judges. It's like the Olympics. They're always – when there's judges, things just get messed up. It's human error, I guess, but it seems crazy. They don't – I guess I just assumed that all three judges sat next to each other, but that wouldn't make sense because you would have like the inclination to look over and peek like, I wonder if he gave him 10-8. I don't know.
Right. No, they don't. They sit at very different positions, and the way it works is the round is over, and they have a card, and they put the number on the card, and then they hand it off to somebody. And then that card is taken and the score is locked in. They can't go and change it afterwards. So it's a very formalized process. It's just one fraught with human error just by the way we do it.
So what about you? Do you attend fights in person for the UFC or boxing or any MMA for that, Bellator or whatever?
Yeah, I try to go as much as I can. I'm going to be in the road this summer, man. Oh, my God.
So you're still credentialed? You credentialed by the UFC and Dana?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they like me very much, but they don't hate me enough to keep me out.
I've had Ariel on here, and we talked about his whole when he got banned for like a day, and then they brought him back. But
did you see what happened today?
Yeah. So let people know what happened to Ariel today.
Okay, so UFC 199, a lot of people might have known about because he was on the Dan Patrick Show, and Richard Deitch wrote him up in Sports Illustrated. He was at 199. He broke some news that they didn't want him to break, and they yanked him and said they were going to ban him forever. Cooler heads prevailed, and they let him back, but it was a sort of an ugly episode. And today, he was hired by Showtime, along with Brendan Schaub, who's a former UFC fighter, as well as he's done some analyst work for Spike TV, Paulie Malignaggi, Showtime broadcaster, and Mauro Ranallo, Showtime broadcaster. And according to tweets from Ariel, and I texted him, and we talked a little bit, the UFC specifically asked or told Showtime, I'm not sure exactly how they did it, but they said we don't want Ariel on what he was hired to do, which is pre- and post-fight coverage of all four of these Mayweather-McGregor press conferences. So they yanked him at the last minute. And he was on a red eye last night and didn't find out till he showed up to the venue. So, what can you say, man? The UFC, look, they're not as bad as they used to be. There's a lot of negative press they just let slide that they used to be really hard asses about. But here's the truth about this. I'm sure Ariel's not happy about it, and I don't want to speak for him. But every time they do this, they martyr him, and they turn him into a bigger and bigger cause of celebration. So I don't think they're doing what they think they're doing.
Why? So why do they have to wait until he shows up to the venue? I'm sure they knew at least 4 or 5 days before this that he got that gig with Showtime.
You'd have to ask the UFC, man. I really don't know. They knew he'd been hired. It was announced in a press release. I guess at the last minute they just decided they had a different idea. And again, There's a lot of good people who work at the UFC. Their media people are great. I just think there's a lot of top brass. Not a lot, but there's probably a couple of members of top brass. I've got an issue with Ariel. It's petty and vindictive, but what are you going to do?
But that's what didn't make sense as well. So I know Brendan Schaub, as he was on here a long time ago, and Brendan stays on the pre-fight, post-fight for I think 3 of the 4, and Brendan is very public about how much he disagrees with Dana. Right.
That was the weird part. It's like, if you're asking who's critical from an opinion standpoint, Brendan is, in my judgment, as critical, if not more. And I like Brendan too. Like, I don't have any issue with that. I think you should speak your mind one way or the other. If you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. But you should be able to have a measure of candor. That's all that we really have is candor. Yeah. But I guess they don't care about that. This is what I mean. It just feels to me, and again, I don't know, as I haven't had the UFC side on this one, but it feels to me intensely personal, and that's a real shame. But the good news is, unlike UFC 199, when they just completely yanked him off and said you're banned forever, they did let him cover the event. They did let him get interviews, and I know for a fact I saw it because he alerted everyone on the MMA fighting team that I'm on. He got interviews with Mayweather and Conor and Conor's nutritionist, some of his team members. So he wound up doing pretty good today. It's just obviously whatever happened before, that's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, it does make it. The UFC, whoever is pulling the trigger on those decisions, it's making him a bigger star. If you saw, I think the following, maybe UFC 200 after he had been banned, he comes back and he got a standing O when he stood up to ask his first question.
Yeah, he did. I mean, the fans don't like it. People like Ariel. One of the big things that's obviously he's good at his job. I mean, he wouldn't be there if he wasn't. But I think that top brass don't realize he's you remember when Stitch Duran got removed from the UFC and everyone was all upset, or Burt Watson? And I'm not saying he's those guys, but I'm saying you saw or Michael Goldberg. There are these really likable central figures in MMA, and messing with their role can cause some blowback. And I think Ariel is one of those guys where if you mess with him, and especially for basically a frivolous reason, it doesn't work. Again, it doesn't work in the way they think it's going to work.
What happened with Mike Goldberg when all of a sudden, bam, he's gone, and there was big talk about how there's no send off, there was no even mention of it. All of a sudden, he wasn't there.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I mean, look, I'll just be honest about this. I've never really enjoyed his commentary. Now you might, and if some of your
why is that? Can you explain why?
Okay, so this is a problem in MMA generally. It's not exclusive to Mike Goldberg by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't want to say something. I'm not here to rain on his parade. He got a job with Bellator. And I get it. It makes sense for him. It makes sense for Bellator. As I mentioned before, I'm in the minority. A lot of people like him. So I'm glad he's got what he got. But for me, and I can only speak for me, one of the major problems with MMA commentary, and you'll actually talk to fans, and I don't know that they have the most solid grasp on this. There's typically in a 2-man booth, and you know this, there's Troy Aikman and there's Joe Buck, right? Color and play-by-play. In MMA, I always felt that Joe was so strong and that I didn't think Mike was necessarily, in my judgment, all that great. So Joe wound up doing a lot of his duties. There's a lot of guys who are really excellent at it. I think my favorite commentator in sports is Doc Emmerich. I don't know if you watch a lot of hockey.
He's the best ever. He's amazing.
I mean, Doc is incredible, right? He does the most of the talking, and then someone else chirps in some, analysis about what's happening there. In MMA, the roles get reversed. I just personally, I don't find him necessarily all that strong of a commentator, but I understand why Bellator hired him, because he is a beloved figure. How many guys have called MMA for a national or international level event on TV? Not many, and he's still got a lot of juice left in the tank in terms of his desire to do this. So I'm happy for him, but I have my personal preferences, and I'm preferential to Mauro Ranallo. I think Mauro is probably the best combat sports announcer ever.
Mauro's an interesting figure, man. He has a background in the WWE, correct?
He goes back further than that. I mean,
but pro wrestling, does he still do pro wrestling?
So so he started out in pro wrestling, and then he's moved into everything else. And he was with WWE for a while. I don't watch pro wrestling, so someone who knows more will give you better information.
Well, you have pretty strong feelings on pro wrestling.
Yeah, but keeping it on Mauro. He had a falling out with WWE, and I thought he was done with them, but he's back with them, I think, on one of their other shows. I know he's still doing WWE, but what makes Mauro different for me than all the rest is not number one, he's the only one at the highest level who's done high-level pro wrestling, high-level kickboxing with Glory and K1 and everything else, or Pride anyway. And well, Pride was okay. He's done high-level kickboxing. He's done high-level MMA, high-level pro wrestling, and high-level boxing, and done them all in an excellent manner. There is nobody who's got that resume in MMA or in combat sports besides Mauro Ranallo. He is alone the king.
Now, he is with Bellator as well.
Yeah, I don't know exactly in what capacity. So him and Mike Goldberg are going to trade off duties. Did you watch that pay-per-view they did?
I did. It was weird. Like, I think Goldie may have taken like I don't know, a couple fights before the pay-per-view, and then Mauro took over the pay-per-view, was it?
So I was there, so I didn't get the chance to watch it. The way it worked was it's all one card, but they break their cards up into 3 sections. At least they did for this one. The prelim, which is just nobody's. Then the prelim on Spike TV, and Goldie called that one. Mm-hmm. And then they did their pay-per-view show, and Mauro called that one. And before that, Mauro was working the desk. So they were kind of all over the place. I guess from what I saw for people on social media who were watching at home, people seem to like it. I still have not heard it, but I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, that's right. They flip-flopped. So when Goldberg was calling the fights and doing play-by-play, Mauro was on the desk, and they would like cut to the desk and have the panel. It was Brendan Shaw, Goldie, and I forget the third fighter. I feel bad. I know
Josh Thompson.
Yeah, he was talk about an excitable guy. Yeah. That dude was awesome on TV, but he was so juiced. I love the energy he brought. Him and Mauro, it's like an atomic bomb together. But yeah, and so then it flip-flopped, I guess. Mauro took over for the final, like the primetime fights, and then Goldie went to the desk as the panel in between fights.
Yeah, and I still have not seen it, but I heard good things. I didn't hear any complaints out of either guy. I'm told Goldberg did well on the Spike TV broadcast, so I think that's a good fit for him and that organization.
I want Goldie to go back and do football again. You ever see that game he did? 1 or 2 games?
I don't know if that went all that well for him, though, right?
Give it another shot, man. You gotta get back up, get back on the horse, right?
Calling pro football is hard, man. It's super difficult. Do you know this? Do you know John Anik?
Yeah, I know Anik. I've all these guys. Man, I've been lucky. You guys are all interwoven. I think he was on here a long time ago, and we share the same broadcast agent. Yeah.
Do you really? Mm-hmm. He called I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, he called a Washington State football game for Fox Sports 1, I think trying it out. And I watched it, and, obviously your first time doing it is not going to be your best time doing it, but he was pretty good, actually. I mean, I think he could do that if he really had to or wanted to.
Yeah, those guys that are like the top of the game at their game can do like any sport. That's what's unreal. When you look at like a Mike Tirico can go from a college basketball game to the U.S. Open in golf, whatever. I don't know what network he's NBC now, and then do the primetime football games. Like how they can jump around even in the same week to different sports. People I don't think appreciate how tough that is.
Do you as a guy who played football, do you like Joe Buck? Because Joe Buck does baseball and Joe Buck does football. I don't watch baseball, but I can tell that most of the people who don't like Joe Buck don't like him from his baseball. They find his football to be a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, I love Joe Buck. That's mainly I'm a homer because I've gotten to know him over the years and just an awesome dude. But people, I think his iconic voice, you will always know. Like World Series, you just equate his voice with that. And I don't watch baseball either too much, but no, I think he and Troy Aikman are great together. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite duos. And I'll tell you, I think obviously it's a name you're probably really familiar with. You know who's one of my favorite up-and-coming analysts who's on TV for football? Brady Quinn. Brady Quinn is super solid, man. He's good. He's really good.
It's my brother-in-law, man.
Yeah, no. I was like, he was on a buddy of mine's radio show here in D.C., and I was like, that was really good. And then I was like, this one said he was going to call the game on Fox, or maybe it was Fox Sports 1 or whatever it was. And then I saw it, and I was like, oh, my God. I was shocked at how good it was,
Yeah, man, his crew as well, his play-by-play guy, Joe Davis, is a young up-and-comer who just took over for Vin Scully as the Dodgers announcer. So big-time shoes to fill. But, they are Brady and Joe are great together. And I watched him and just saw him yesterday. And, yeah, there's a reason that Brady, prepares his ass off. He's really into it. And, obviously, he looks the part. He's a big, old, tall, handsome dude on there that can speak well. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that must be nice. That must be nice.
How did you get started in all that? Like, what was your first gig in the media world?
Oh, that's a good question. Wow. All right. So I started my own. This is the era of blogs. This is 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. I started a blog, and it got picked up one day by Colin Cowherd, of all people. And he was still at ESPN at the time, and his people had me on, and I talked about something, and then I can't remember what it was to this day, to be honest. Oh, I was maybe the UFC's purchase of Pride, something like that. And then SB Nation hired me to run a site called Bloody Elbow. And at the time, it was just a name. Like, there was maybe one post on it, literally one. They had just got it off the ground, and they asked me to do that. But the real way I got started was I was trying to get an interview on that site for the first pro show ever in Washington, D.C. This was May of 2007. And I remember interviewing the promoter, and I did something totally unprofessional. I really don't know what came over me. This is just a true moment. I was asking him, hey, who's your commentary team? Because they had a pretty decent card for a regional show. And he was like, yeah, we don't have a play-by-play guy yet. And something in my brain just goes, tell him you can do it. So I said I could do it. Understand, I'd never done anything like that in my life. Honest to God, it was one of those moments where someone just came over me. So I got that gig, and it went well, actually. And the guy who was the ring announcer ended up being one of the most important radio hosts here in D.C. on a show. And they had me on their show to talk MMA. And this was when MMA was really getting hot, And they gave my name to the show. The program director, they gave me a show. That show ran its course. SiriusXM found me, and here we are.
How long have you been doing the Luke Thomas show on SiriusXM?
I've been with SiriusXM longer. I've been with them since 2012, but I haven't been doing the Luke Thomas show a year in October. How
is that, having a show every single day? I do a lot of stuff with SiriusXM, but I'm more like a couple shows a week here and there. I don't have a 5-day-a-week thing like you do, and I always wonder how I would react to that.
You'd actually like it more. And the reason why is, look, are there days where I don't want to do anything? Of course. But the truth is, the best way to get good at radio is to do it every day, because your show has more continuity. You get more reps. You get more feel. Your segments get better. You develop a more cohesive relationship with your audience. It's more work, quite obviously. But what winds up happening is, once you start doing it, because I was doing it 1 day a week, then I did it 3 days a week, and then I just upped it all the way to 5. And then when we hit 5, I remember feeling like, okay, now I've got a grasp on this. Obviously, there are times where it's like a random Wednesday, and you've got nothing to talk about, and there's no guests. You're like, oh, what am I going to do? But generally speaking, it's actually better for your show.
Okay, yeah. Well, then you can truly give your opinion, I guess. If you're not bogged down by guests, can't you just sit there and spew whatever you want?
Yeah, but sometimes I get tired of that. You can be, if you do this enough, because remember, I don't just do the show. I do a podcast on Mondays. I do a podcast on Wednesdays, 2 separate ones. Then I do another one on Thursdays, and I do at minimum 10 hours of radio a week. By Friday, it's like, people are like, what do you think about X? I'm like, I don't care. I just don't care anymore. I don't care. I can't possibly care, and I can't expect you to care if I don't care, So there's a limit to it as well.
All right, so well then all of a lot of your stuff, I actually watch a lot of clips on YouTube, and one of my favorite ever. This was last week, I believe. I urge anyone to go check the link out. It's on. You can watch it on YouTube, but there's no video. It's just your audio of you talking about Ronda Rousey's appearance on Regis and Kathy Lee, whatever, Kelly and whoever her co-host, Seacrest. Who was the guy sitting in for her?
Jerry O'Connell.
Has Jerry O'Connell sent you a text that he wants to fight you or anything yet?
No, nothing like that.
That was amazing, man. What? So can you explain? You had just had an awesome 25-minute rant on this Ronda interview, the puff piece they did, I guess, on Kelly and Seacrest.
So Ronda is doing this show. God, what is the name of the show? Battle of the Network Stars, I think is the name of the show. It's on ABC or something like that. And she was doing promos for it. She was doing publicity for it. And she went on Live with Kelly and Ryan. So I guess the show used to be Live with Kelly. Well, used to be Regis Philbin and then Michael Strahan. And then Strahan left, and it's now Ryan Seacrest. And I don't know if he's on vacation or what, but Jerry O'Connell was filling it. And the truth is, I actually like Jerry O'Connell as an actor. He's been, I'm not just saying that. I actually do like him as an actor. But Rhonda didn't want to answer any questions about fighting, like at all.
Now, was that a stipulation you think she had coming in?
Come on, man. I mean,
why do they take her then? Why do they bring her on?
Because they don't care. It's not a journalism show. It's an entertainment show. They don't care. And their audience is not going to know the difference.
I guess because it's like my mom's 60. I guess she's watching with her friends, so she doesn't need Rhonda to explain like what a rear naked choke is.
And also, well, she might do that, but like, does your mom or anyone else who's in that core demo, do they care why she lost to Amanda Nunes in 48 seconds? Not really.
No,
not really.
Right. You're right.
So anytime fight media has tried to interview her people are explicit, man. They're explicit. They're like, no questions about fighting whatsoever. And Richard Deitch, I did a panel with him, like a journalist roundtable. In the wake of what happened to Ariel, he did this large panel. It was me and Ariel and Kevin Iole, Dave Meltzer, and Simmons, and there's some other writers on there. And they were like, who's hard to work with? And I couldn't believe it, because all my contemporaries that I mentioned, they're all like A-listers. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but I was the only one who was like, yo, Ronda Rousey is not easy to work with at all. She wants to control reality. She wants to scrub from the public discourse anything that is unflattering to her. And the truth is, that's her right. That's absolutely her choice. And if shows want to comply with that, what am I supposed to say, But the fact of the matter is, I don't have to go along with it. And she goes on this show, and she was not so bad. I mean, she answered the questions they gave her. It's just they didn't give her any real ones. And Kelly, I thought, was okay, too. But Jerry O'Connell, it just looked like he was desperate for work because he's on this thing and he's like saying all these things that sound – I mean, you must run in these circles sometimes, man, where you meet some of these Hollywood people or famous people and they can – I don't have a tremendous amount of experience with it, but they can be, bizarrely inauthentic. And he was saying things like, let's see your ring. And he says, show me that puppy. Yeah, baby. And I'm like, there's never been a man who said that in his effing life. What are you doing, Jerry O'Connell? It was undignifying, to put it mildly.
See, I'm holding out hope though that so Jerry O'Connell is married to
Rebecca Romaine, dude.
Yeah, John Stamos' ex-wife.
Yeah.
So I'm holding out hope that Jerry goes home and his wife's like, hey, how'd it go? And he's like, it was good. He's like, man, I really had to lay it on thick. I feel like such a douche. Like, I'm hoping he has the awareness that he had to play it up so big for, as we say, like my mom's demo.
Well, here's the problem with that. So it's funny you mentioned that. So my producer who runs the show and the channel, my producer runs the channel and my show.
Marissa?
Her mom, Marissa, her mom saw the Jerry O'Connell appearance. Now, not because we talked about it, just because she was watching.
Yeah.
And she goes, you should tell Luke that Kelly and Jerry were great on that show. I was like, yeah, I didn't quite have that take, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, so Jerry's just doing his job, I guess, huh?
I guess for that demo, Jerry was the Ronda Rousey in her prime.
Show me that ring.
Show me that puppy.
That puppy.
Yeah, babe.
Yeah, it was brutal. It really was. And I give Jerry enough credit to think he has the awareness to know, like, hey man, guys got to work, huh? Like he's just thinking, trying to get back for another. Whenever Seacrest is sick, I hope to be in the top 3 that they call.
Also, in fairness to Jerry, I was dramatically hungover in that clip.
Okay.
Trying to do live radio, so your boy was a little bit struggling.
At 4 p.m., you're still hungover?
Well, it was Vegas time, so it was 1.
Okay.
And I went to bed late, but so yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. Well, how old are you now?
I'll be 38 in 3 weeks, man. I'm old.
So you were a Marine, correct? Or you're always a Marine, really?
Yeah, that's right. But I know what you mean. Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps from 98 to 2004. Yep.
So was that like coming out of high school?
Yeah. So the way it worked was my dad was a diplomat, and no one in my family had ever joined the military. And I just always thought the Marine Corps was, I know it sounds silly to say, but I just thought it was the most badass thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I didn't know anything about the military. No one in my family did. And I was still going to college right on time. I went to the College of William & Mary. And the way it worked was the Marine Corps was like, all right, we'll make you a deal. What we'll do is as soon as you graduate from high school, let's go to boot camp. And what happens in the Marine Corps is you go to boot camp, and then there's a series of schools after that, both related to combat specific skills as well as job-related skills, whatever your job is in the military. And you usually do them in all right in quick succession. So you go from boot camp, you go home for a week or two, then you go to either the infantry school, or you go to, I think it's called MCT, Marine Combat Training, depending on what your MOS is. And then you go to your job school. Your job school can be anywhere from, a few months to 2 years, depending, again, on what it is. And they just delayed mine. So I went to boot camp, college, MCT, college. And then I went to my MOS school at the very end.
So would you go during, like, summer break, winter break? When would you go?
Yeah, so what they would do is they would essentially send me right in my summers. My summers would be, and when all my contemporaries, I graduated high school on a Friday. I went to boot camp on that Monday, right to it. I had no summer vacation. In fact, I had missed all of I call it in-doc week because it's a military term, but you know how when freshmen get together for the first week, when they first get there, everyone's meeting each other. I missed all of that because Marine Corps boot camp is 13 weeks. They shave a week off for you if you're going to go to college. They don't make you do 1 week where you're just cleaning up around Parris Island. And then every summer thereafter, I would just spend all my time. I cannot tell you how many summers I spent at 29 Palms, California, which was not awesome, but I guess, good experience.
How was boot camp compared to what you thought it was going to be?
Much worse.
Really? Which part? Which part?
I had read a book called Making a Marine. There's a top military scholar named Thomas Ricks. Thomas Ricks has written a number of books and is still alive today and writes for Foreign Policy magazine. And he had written one called Making a Marine. And I thought that was going to be a clue into what it was like. And I guess to an extent it was. But I didn't grow up an athlete, I'm not an athlete. So part of it was I wasn't used to that kind of physical stress, but that really wasn't, you don't have to be a good athlete to get through boot camp. You just have to be good up here. And I was unprepared for the emotional and mental abuse, to be quite frank. I didn't see that coming. That took a little while to get adjusted to.
So when do you find, like, at what week do you ever settle in and think, okay, I'm gonna make it? Like, does it take week 10? What is it?
Week 8 for me. Week 9 maybe. Week 9 is when, remember, I skipped a week, right? And the week you skip is called what's it called, like mess and maintenance week. So Parris Island, there's 2 sections to boot camp. You can go to Parris Island if you're east of the Mississippi, and if you're west, you go to San Diego. It used to be everyone went to Parris Island. It's the traditional home of the Marine Corps. And the way it works is Parris Island is fully self-maintained. They don't hire any outside help. The way it works is if there are lawns that need mowing, the recruits do it. If there is work that needs to be done, the recruits do it, from the mess hall to everything. It's self-contained. And there's a week you spend at boot camp doing that. I skipped that week. And so I was in 2nd Battalion when I first got there, platoon 2074. And they bumped me up to 1st Battalion. I skipped that week to a platoon that was 1 week ahead of us, to 1066 and 1st Battalion. And that was when I knew I was in the home stretch, because I only had 3 weeks left. I had skipped that mess and maintenance week, and all I had to do left was a thing, I think they still do it, called the Crucible. And I knew if I just, the only thing was really that's hard about boot camp was, again, I was like just getting screamed at all the time, is just the injury. You just don't want to get injured, because if you get injured, what they do is if you get injured week 5, they throw you in a platoon with a bunch of other, guys who are jacked up, and you heal, and then you get back where you left off. And I knew guys that broke their legs that missed, they would be in the hospital just 6 months, and then they'd have to go back and pick up where they left off. They'd be on Parris Island for a year or something. Terrible. I wanted to get in and get out. So I knew when I hit that new platoon that I was almost there.
Now, can you quit? Is that an option?
So I don't know what the rules are exactly, but here's what they told me. Can I curse on this?
Oh, yeah.
So here's what I got there. This guy got up there and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And this drill instructor got right in his face. In fact, the brim of his cover was bumping his forehead. He goes, there's 2 ways you're going to get off my island. You're going to graduate a U.S. Marine, or you're going to die of old fucking age. And he refused to comply. So the MPs came and got him. And I don't know what happened to him. I'm guessing he got discharged in some kind of, not quite dishonorable, but probably general other than honorable conditions for failure to comply. I don't know if you spend time in the brig. If you ultimately just, refuse to comply, they can't make you, but they'll probably be, once you show up, you're subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and they don't take that kind of thing lightly. So the answer is basically you can quit, but not without some kind of military justice issue.
Yeah, it's not like you're trying to be a Navy SEAL and you're in buds and you quit and
you
send you
ring
back
the
to
bell.
the fleet. Yeah,
no. See, that's
no
different.
Fleet.
No. If you ring the bell, that's like tapping in a fight. I've had enough. But that's a special case. This is remember, if you're a recruiter, you have an obligation to get a certain number of people into not just the branch of service you're working in, but into various jobs. Hey, the Marine Corps will tell a recruiter, hey, we need some more infantrymen. We need you to get some infantry guys. So they have to recruit those guys, and they have to go all the way successfully through the program for that recruiter to do his job. So there's a lot of incentive that once you show up there, you got to finish, and if you don't, it's not something I want to find out.
Now, did you ever see yourself being a lifer, like doing 30 years?
Oh, no, never. And the thing is, because I remember I was in college at the time, and if you don't go to college in the military, you're what's called enlisted. And if you do go to college and you go to a different school for that in a different system, you're an officer. Now, you can be an enlisted man with a college degree, but you'd have to go back through officer school to become one. And, of course, all officers have to have college degrees. There's something called a warrant officer, which is something in between, but that's another issue. But long story short, once I got to college, I realized I was on a different path. I thought I wanted to do academia for a while, but whatever it was, I just knew the military was something I just wanted to see what it looked like. I saw what it looked like. I'm glad I did it, but it was not for me long term. No.
Now, were you involved in jiu-jitsu at the time?
No. I got into MMA from, back in '94, but not. I had a family friend who was like into traditional martial arts. This was before anyone knew anything. And he was like, hey, you got to see this Brazilian guy. So we'd go to Blockbuster. My parents were divorced. So I had nothing to do as a kid when I was staying with my dad. So I'd go to Blockbuster and we'd rent all these videos. And, your eyes pop out of your head when you see Hoist Gracie for the first time doing what he did. And then so I kind of got accustomed to it in that. So then when in college, I did a little bit of judo, but recreationally, not at, any serious level. But then when the Marine Corps came along, I did something called the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, and that was a lot of fun. And that's sort of more tactical jiu-jitsu. It's real basic. None of those guys are going to be any kind of champions, nor are they trying to be. They're just trying to give Marines just enough ground skills to get the upper hand in some kind of a physical altercation, not on the street, but in a combative situation. And then when I moved here in D.C. in 2005, I didn't know anybody, and I was bored, and I found a gym that was like it was a UFC fighter training there at the time, and I found out they were like 3 miles from my house. I couldn't believe it, so I just kind of went there, and I pretty quickly realized I wasn't cut out for that either. But the way I got into journalism was that these guys would go compete, and there would be very little to no write-ups of what they were doing, and so I'd get online and I'd look. And there were just no sites. They just didn't exist. I mean, there were small, or there were web forums, but there was no real ecosystem. And so I started up a site.
Wow, real grass. So that wasn't your when you said you were thinking about academia, you wanted to teach?
I graduated with a double major in philosophy and government, and I toyed with the idea of going into philosophy as an academic, like at the university level. But even then, I realized I have my interests are a little bit too diverse, and I don't know that was necessarily what I wanted to do either. Plus, by the time I finished college, I was sort of academia out a little bit. And then a year or two out of college, I was like, maybe I want to go back. But ultimately, I just decided against it.
Were you always a good talker? Because your show you host is just you, and obviously Marissa jumps in a little bit and other guys, but it's just you.
Oh, I used to have a speech impediment as a kid.
What was it? What kind?
I mumbled. I did not enunciate very clearly.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people suffer. I mean, everybody. I feel like if I get lazy or I'm in a weird situation, sometimes I will definitely mumble out. I have to be aware.
Yeah, I think it's more common than I think you're right. I think it's more common than people realize. But for me, it got so bad that my parents had trouble understanding me. Wow. So I had to go to a speech therapist for a while, and so that got me to be slow and process things. And then by high school, I got on the debate team, and I know it's so nerdy, right? But
Ted Cruz did that too, right? He was like the best ever.
Yeah, and you know what? He's actually pretty good at it.
He won some. Didn't he win the big like national master debater situation?
He might have. I mean, the guy didn't get into Harvard Law by accident. But you know what? The funny thing about debating, there's two different kinds. There's policy, and then there's Lincoln Douglas. And I did policy debating. Policy debating at actually a medium to low level is a lot more fun than high level. Do you remember? So how old are you, AJ?
33.
33. I think this is still your time. Do you remember the Micro Machines man who spoke really fast?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. At the high level of policy debating, it's a lot like watching two Micro Machines men simply read policy arguments as fast as humanly possible. It's not about drawn out exposition of ideas. And that turned me off. I didn't really enjoy that. But I liked some of the other parts about having a real argument with somebody in a technical, measured, defined way, which is how I got into philosophy as well. So, no, the answer is I was not always a good talker. I like anything, it takes time to master a skill.
So your radio show or early on, do you ever go back and listen to some of your recordings from stuff that you put out maybe 10 years ago?
Oh, I'm sure it's terrible. I'm sure it's god awful. I do go back and listen to some stuff from like a week or so ago just to hear how it sounds, what's good about it, what do I not like about it, what did I do right, what did I do wrong, but no, I don't go back in time.
Do you like the sound of your voice?
I don't hate it.
Okay.
When you first start, you're like, it sounds like nails on a chalkboard. I've grown accustomed to it, so I don't love it, but I don't writhe in agony when I hear it either, which I think a lot of people do at first.
Yeah, no question. I think everybody, I don't know many people like, oh man, I love the sound of my voice when I listen back. That dude, you don't want to hang out with that dude, honestly.
Maybe Morgan Freeman could say something like that, but the rest of us mortals can't get away with it.
You never know. Morgan Freeman, every once in a while, I was like, man, I wish I had a little higher voice every once in a while. I can't ever get going. I feel like I'm so dead. Like his voice is so perfect. Yeah, maybe he even wants it changed.
I tell you what I still have a hard time doing is, and I've been on camera a lot. I'm on camera all the time. I still haven't gotten quite used to that, seeing myself on camera.
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty valid. It's pretty normal. That's like anyone that has any self-awareness is not gonna be like, oh, yep, man, nailed that one, killed it. Like you're never gonna feel like everything's perfect.
Yeah, to this day I'm always a little like, I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but it's better to try it,
Would you? What do you think about eventually doing? Like, would you go back and do play-by-play for fighting on any level?
I mean, never say never. It's not really what I'm interested in doing.
What are you like? What would be your? I don't know. Like, what could you see yourself going into in the future as far as the media and broadcasting?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something I think about all the time. I love doing radio. I want to keep doing radio, but I want to do it, and I'm sure SiriusXM is headed in this direction. They have to know that. I know there was a lot of hand-wringing over Fox Sports getting rid of all their writers, and I was against that too because they didn't really get rid of their writers. They got rid of their news desk. That's a problem, right? So, but their arguments about video being the future, I don't agree with all of them, but there's a lot of merit to that. And I remember when Howard Stern first started filming himself, people were like, what is Howard doing? But it was oddly captivating. It's a radio show, but it made more sense to watch. I want to get into more of that direction. And if you're talking about like actual event work, I can't work for a promoter because that would be a conflict of interest, but I don't mind working for a television network. I've always felt that if I could in a perfect world, I always felt like I could work an analyst desk okay. I feel like there's a lot of people on TV who are in there not because of meritocracy, but because of, some producer feels like they bring a certain energy or they're willing to say something to get on TV. And I don't think you have to make trade-offs like that. I think if you look hard enough, you can find people who can do analysis and they can do it without compromising the thought process or the integrity of the work itself.
Well, that's the podcast that I don't know if you even call it a podcast. It's so well produced. What you do with Ariel, is that every Monday?
Thursdays,
like that is what you guys are doing, like the panel, and you discuss MMA. You guys are great, and it's really well produced. Wherever, I don't know, you shoot that in DC?
No, I go to New York every Thursday. I live in DC. I go to New York every Thursday to shoot that, and I do my show from there as well, my radio show. It's called the MMA Beat. Man, I mean, my show's my favorite thing I do. Obviously, it's like my baby, but that might be the second favorite thing I do. I love doing the MMA Beat for those reasons. I've tried some things like, for example, who I've got a lot of respect for, and only because I've done it and I sucked at it. Sideline reporters, dude, I'm telling you, that is not easy. You have to tough. You got to get the right amount of information. You got to deliver. Have you ever seen Clinton Portis try to do it?
I think I have, yeah.
It's not awesome. And I like Clinton, but it's not awesome.
Not awesome.
It's hard to do, man. It's really hard. And then I realized, you know what? I don't think I'm cut out for this. But that a group of people talking, sharing ideas, again, debating, with philosophical underpinnings, I think that speaks more to my strengths. And
you have a little more. I think that's the future of everything now. The format, it's longer format. It's not even like it's shot for a Fox or something to where it's like, hey guys, we have a 5-minute or 6-minute segment here. We got 4 guys in the panel. You each got to get your points out in 42 seconds, and we got to go to break.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really have to parcel it out like that. You guys can actually give complete thoughts.
Yeah, from what I understand, I mean, Ariel might know better than this, but I know that there are some companies outside of the web space. I think, I think I can say this. I think there's been some TV companies that have expressed some interest about the MMA beat, but there's never been any talks or anything. I think just informal. Hey, this is something we really like. But the beauty of the MMA beat is that exactly what you said. The web is where you're free. The web can be whatever you can do whatever you want. And yes, there are some best practices, but the truth is, if you develop an interesting product and an interesting way of interacting with your audience, there are no rules. You can do what you want, and you can say what you want, and you can format it however you like. And MMA beat is absolutely free. We try to keep it from meandering or something, but to your point, it's an hour of 4 guys talking, and we get to say whatever the fuck we want, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah, and you don't have anyone in your ear probably telling you
Nope.
move on or make sure you hit this or stay away from that.
Nope. TV is here's why TV is good. TV is where all the money is. There's a tremendous amount of money in television, right? If you see somebody like a Jim Brown probably makes stupid checks, or Mike Tirico, but it's organized to an almost neurotic degree. There's a little bit of quality control, not in terms of how the product looks, but in terms of what you're saying. Are you offending a sponsor? What are you doing? You can't look at Joe Rogan. I don't think there's nothing controversial about marijuana use. Like, obviously if a child is using it or something, but not among adults. And he talks about it openly. This is anathema to the way in which sports television, in fact, would work, which is whether UFC sort of deserves some commendation for the risks they take in that regard. And that's why I like the internet, because Joe Rogan doesn't have to worry about any of those things. He can just have the guests he wants, in the discussion he wants, in the way he wants, and nobody can say anything to him. That is true freedom.
And he gets millions and millions of downloads per episode.
I know.
Like, people, they talk about it. Guys go on there to promote stuff, obviously, and they don't even, it's not overt, like blatant promoting. They sit there and talk for 3 hours, and as you said, Joe's smoking weed on camera. And he does shows for Fox, like, he doesn't care. He does, and because he built his own platform, and he's at heart he's a stand-up, and he's like, I don't care, I can quit everything. I'm still going to do stand-up no matter what. But it is amazing, like, the freedom he has, and compared to, like, say, like a guy like Tirico. If Tirico says literally one thing off the top of his head to offend a certain group or a sponsor, bam, he could be gone. Every job he has right now could be taken.
I mean, can you imagine the sensitivity you have to have working, like, I think he works at NBC now, so the Olympics or, whatever. I mean, you have to walk a fine line, and he can walk that tightrope. He's good at that. But I think the lesson for me from watching Joe Rogan has been, if you're authentic about who you are from day one, and you're smart enough to build an identity and apparatus around you, over time, that will pay dividends, because no one thinks or twice about some of the things that would ordinarily get another person in a very, very similar line of work in extraordinary amounts of trouble.
Well, don't you think that's why people were so quick to jump on a guy like Bill O'Reilly and get him fired and have the sponsors pull out, because he kind of presented this, I don't know if he presented a family man or family values, and then we have all these stories about them paying $15 million to girls that he was, I guess, sexually harassing, not sexually assaulting, but making lewd comments to, maybe. Like, don't you think people are, because he was painting this picture of this guy, and he turns out he's not that person, that's why everyone's like, oh man, get this dude out of here.
Yeah, I think it's partly the other issue is that so I mean, think about it this way. I don't like the idea generally of people going after people's sponsors to get a guy or a lady or whoever it is and fired, I kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. But at the same time, this is the free market. If your business model is based on a way where you have an extraordinary dependency on sponsors, and if they can be influenced to abandon your programming, these are the risks that you run in setting up an apparatus like this. Now, I don't think Joe gets quite the public awareness that Bill O'Reilly does, or at least did when he had his show. This is a somewhat of a smaller platform, but this is what I mean. What would you rather have? Because they've tried to go after Sean Hannity for a similar thing. I'm sure there's going to be some liberal person that conservative groups will go after as well for whatever infraction they deem reasonable to go after sponsors. But the point being is, if you set up a model that exposes you like that, then these are the risks you run. Joe has none of these things. What do they do? They're going to go after YouTube to take him down. YouTube's not going to do anything about it. And he's not going to say anything that's going to get YouTube's attention really anyway. So it's I won't say it's bully proof, but it is a remarkable latitude.
And you have, so like, I know you go live on YouTube at certain times, post fight, whatever. Is that all your own deal, or is that affiliated with any company?
So I do some stuff on YouTube for MMA fighting, and then I'm trying to get my own channel a little bit higher.
Was it Knuckles Up, Knuckles Deep, something? What is it?
It's a terrible name. You can't change the name of your YouTube channel. You just have to develop a new one. So if you search Luke Thomas, it comes up. But
what
it's
is
Knuckle
it?
Game.
Oh, my bad. Knuckle Game.
Knuckle Game. I know, it's so bad. I opened it I opened it when YouTube first started. I was like, let me just register something, not thinking about it, and then I just kind of put stuff on there, and then over time I was like, oh no, what am I doing? But,
hey, now you know, just own it now and play into it and get put some weird thumbnail pic of you, act like you're a big tough guy biting on a mouthpiece or something.
Maybe. I'm more just mortified by it, but yeah, I'm trying to get that up. So those things you talked about, after big events, I'll go on my YouTube channel and I'll do an hour-long post-fight show. And those have been great for me, but it's that kind of thing. You can't tell me what to do on those. I get to say what I get to do on those, and it feels different. It does feel different. I mean, I'm not complaining about SiriusXM. Here I am, but there's something to be said for. There's a lot of corporate practices that only happen because they're just grandfathered in to every successive broadcaster, and I feel like YouTube has blown up some of those traditions a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think about the recent development of the UFC copying Joe Rogan and doing a fight companion where Snoop is the lead analyst?
Yeah, it's a little weird, isn't it? I mean, I don't think it'll take away.
It's on Fight Pass now. Is that right?
So the way it works, that's going on as we speak, by the way. So the way that works is the event is happening, right? The fights are in front of you, and then Dan Hellie, a guy from Washington D.C. who was at the NFL Network for a while, and then I forget who the other guy is. It's Eves Edwards.
Oh yeah.
Are commentating. And then there's an alternate commentary stream. So also sitting cage side is Uriah Faber and Snoop Dogg.
Wait, are they really? They're going to be cage side? They're not in a separate building?
Oh, they're cage side, dude. They're there. They're there. But you would want them to be there, because if you're hiring Snoop, what are you hiring him for? To be funny, to be in the moment. And I've commentated, local small shows before. And it's common. Blood gets splattered on you. It's quite common. You want to hear what Snoop has to say. You'd rather be in a place where Snoop is at risk of getting splashed with blood than not.
Mm-hmm. So now people can turn on Fight Pass, so they could have one screen playing the pay-per-view fights going on, and the other screen will be watching Snoop watch the fight, or how does that work?
No. Imagine if you're watching the fights, and the normal audio feed into your ears you're watching as a customer is the normal commentary team. You can toggle on the user interface, and you could say, I want to switch to the joke commentary stream. And so you'll still be the exact same fights. The camera work will be exactly the same, but it'll be, Snoop and Uriah doing crazy things.
I think that's interesting. I mean, I don't blame UFC for trying. Why not?
Yeah, I actually liked it too. And when it came out, all these MMA fans were like, this is the worst thing ever. And I'm like, look, this is not a Supreme Court seat. If he sucks, they'll just fire him. But it's not the main feed. It's an alternate feed. And who knows? Maybe Snoop is hilarious. I don't know.
Yeah, you just made me picture Snoop sitting there getting blood splattered on him and just thinking of his reaction. I'm like, man, I'm actually going to check that out next fight.
I mean, are you not curious? I'm curious. I'm gonna look.
they better. I don't know how Fight Pass works, but they better put those clips on YouTube, or do they keep everything off?
They put some stuff on YouTube. Sure, you can actually follow Fight Pass on Twitter, and they'll put like clips up there. And I bet I guarantee.
Okay, because I have Fight Pass, but I know some companies are weird where they won't they take all their stuff off of YouTube.
I know. No. Why UFC is good about YouTube, and why would you hire Snoop to bury him behind a paywall? It would make no sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you know how many subscribers Fight Pass has?
I don't. I know on their YouTube channel for UFC, they've got 3.7 million. They've got a substantial number.
So it's got to be considerably lower than that, correct?
Oh,
for Fight Pass?
I am speaking very much out of turn. If you're asking for like a guess, 100,000, something more like that.
That's following the WWE model, correct?
Sort of. I mean, I don't watch pro wrestling that much, but the WWE model I actually think is better because they put everything on there, right? All the pay-per-views go on there, and I think they also have some original live programming on there as well. Now, I think there are some stuff that's exclusive to TV, but if you're a WWE fan, I don't know how you don't have the network is what they call it. Fight Pass, this is why they're doing this Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, because you can order the pay-per-view on Fight Pass, and a part of the card is going to be on Fight Pass, and occasionally even a full event is on Fight Pass, but it's very much the non-central content. Like, how does UFC make their money? Pay-per-view, television rights fees. So you're going to give your best content to those two. So you got to figure out, if we got to give our best content to those two because that's where we make our money, what are we going to do with Fight Pass? I don't think Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series is the answer, but more exclusive live programming tied to the UFC, because these guys, the ones who win, are going to go on. I think that's the kind of thing that they need. If you ever watched Invicta, I'm told, outside of UFC live streams, is what does best on Fight Pass. And why? Well, because it's some of the best women in the world, but because viewers know that winner is going to be in the UFC, the next event. There's a connectivity there. They need more of that just for the men's side of the game.
Okay, and final couple questions I have for you. You mentioned television rights deals. If I'm not correct, the deal with Fox comes up in 2018. Is that right?
Correct.
2018. Who do you see stepping in to try to make a big run at it?
Man, Fox Sports is in turmoil, aren't they? You know,
it's weird. Do they go? Because it was reported that this past deal was 7 years and up to like $100 million a year, possibly.
Yeah,
it's got to jump, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: if you look at some of the internal projections, they wanted to have up to $400 million a year in television rights fees. Now, the way they planned to do that was to break it up. Maybe you put some on like TNT because they carry the NBA. Maybe you put some on ESPN. Maybe you keep some on Fox Sports. Whatever because NASCAR is all over the place, or the NBA is also on ESPN and also on TNT. That kind of model, and maybe that's a way to get it up there. I don't know that they get to 400. I think 250 a year, 250 million is probably a little bit more likely. And I'll be honest, I do think it's very possible that they end up on ESPN. I'd be very surprised if it was a single suitor that got the entire body of their television rights fees. I think they're going to break it up. How and to who, we can debate that, but I think you're going to wind up seeing it on a lot of different programming and different channels.
Oh, so we could see, say, the John Jones Cormier 2 fight on ESPN, and then the next Joanna fight could be on Fox, something like that?
Or I think those kinds of marquee programs are probably reserved for pay-per-view still. But what I'm saying is, rather than UFC on Fox 25, for example, you got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Chris Weidman. Not this weekend or the next one, but I think the one after that. Something like that, soon, this month. You would see that on ESPN. But maybe you would see UFC Glasgow, which is on Sunday. You would still see that on Fox Sports 1. So they'd kind of break it up like that a little bit, piece by piece. And maybe they take some stuff off pay-per-view to get a higher rights fee. I guess we'll have to see how they do that.
Okay. I mean, I think that, I don't know how it worked out, but that Pacquiao-Horn fight being on ESPN was the greatest thing that could have happened. If not, I can't imagine that thing would sell. I don't know how it sells 100,000 pay-per-views if not.
I loved it. It did great ratings. It killed in the demos. I thought there were some issues on ESPN in terms of knowing how to treat a big fight. They just rolled out their Friday Night Fights crew.
Did they have – I heard their cameraman had Fox Sports jackets on. Was that right?
So I think Fox Sports in Australia was the one that was beaming it to everybody. Like, if you ever watched the World Cup, if you watch Univision and you watch, let's say who carries it next time, Fox or something, you'll see it's the same feed. Univision, actually, I don't know if you know this, Univision bid for the rights to get less of a tape delay. So if you're watching side by side on the World Cup, Univision will get there'll be 3 seconds ahead. It's kind of a funny thing, but it's
they had to pay more for that.
Yeah, they had to pay more for that.
Wow.
But they did it on purpose, and it actually worked out. They had super sick ratings for the 2014 World Cup. Isn't that it's strange, but whatever. It's TV. It's the same feed, so the feed sucked. But what I mean is, you had Teddy Atlas screaming at you. I don't like Teddy, but I mean, come on. I thought Joe Tessitore was good, but then you had Stephen A. Smith back in the desk, and he was not awesome. And I thought Timothy Bradley was okay. He just needs more seasoning. So they're still working out the kinks. But to your point, I liked it. ESPN is obviously going to get better at it. It's the worldwide leader in sports, and I think overall putting that on free TV versus pay-per-view was 1,000% the right call.
No question. Final one. What do you think of Chael Sonnen? He just popped into my mind because I listened to his podcast and watched his last fight against Vanderlei.
I like Chael. Chael and I have a very different relationship. I met him back personally in 2012. I wrote an article about him for MMA Fighting, and my article was, if you looked at all of Chael Sonnen's losses, what would you learn about him? And I don't even remember what I wrote at this point. I have to come back and review it. But I had to see him maybe a week or two later on I did a show for Spike TV at the time called MMA Uncensored Live. And he's like, "Are you Luke Thomas?" I said, "Yes." And I thought he was going to be like, fuck you, and, I hate your guts. Because fighters are sensitive, man. They're real sensitive. And I've interviewed a lot of different athletes, but fighters are the most sensitive. It's just true. They are dude.
Because it's an individual sport, you think, or what?
I'm telling you, I'm not being disparaging. I'm just kidding. But fighters are sensitive little butterflies. Like, they are not like other athletes. I think the difference is, if you go to Ohio State or you go to like an Auburn and you get recruited, you're talking to media when you're 16 and you're having media classes when you're 18 and you have cameras on you through your teens and 20s, and it's restricted, so there's a controlled environment, and then you go on to the next level if you're NBA or if you're NFL, and then by that point, there's a certain culture of understanding how to talk to the media, what it looks like, what to anticipate. They just have rules of the road, and I think a lot of fighters, they go from a regional scene where no one is talking about them to all of a sudden, bing, there's these huge lights, and they're not used to having everyone in their ear is like, "You're the best champ, you'll get it. This is you. This is your turn." And then some dork like me comes along and says, "I thought that was not that great, and I'm just trying to do my job." And they get, you have to learn how to navigate that a little bit as a reporter as well. But I like Chael. Anyway, he came up to me and he said, "I want to thank you for writing that." And I was like, my eyes, and I said, "Why would you say that?" He was like, "Because I knew that whatever conclusion you were coming to was an honest one, and I thought it was actually a good topic. So thank you for talking about me." And I was like,
wow.
Okay, all right. And then from there, I actually did an interview with him. I'll plug this one last one. Deadspin named it, I think it was 2013, one of the best pieces of sports writing of the year. It wasn't really my writing, it was him. Because it's just me asking questions. The answers are all that, his answers are what matters. I do a series called Technique Talk, where I get an expert in some kind of actual subject matter about fighting itself, though. And I did one on wrestling, the nature of MMA wrestling, and his answers were absolutely phenomenal. A lot of guys he talks to, he turns on the shtick, and I have no problem with that, but it doesn't do anything for me. So I guess he knows that about me, and so whenever we talk, he gives it to me straight, like legitimately straight, and I enjoy it. I like talking to him. I always learn a lot.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm glad he's back fighting again. He was victorious over Vanderlei Silva. It was nice.
He was, yeah. It's good to have. I mean, they need that promotion. I think he needs them, and we'll see how much longer he can do this. But yeah, it's a good fit.
Yeah, he's good on ESPN as well, breaking down fights and talking. I mean, he's very, very smart, and he knows how to get his message across. So yeah, I'm a fan of his. But Luke, thank you so much. Where would you like to direct people if they're looking out and trying to find your stuff?
I'm on Twitter, but don't worry about that. My Facebook, my Instagram, it's the same name. It's Instagram.com/Luke Thomas News and Facebook.com/Luke Thomas News. Just give me a like there. I'd appreciate it.
Gotcha. What, Knuckles Up? What's the YouTube again?
See, you can't even remember it, dude.
I can't.
No one can. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's Knuckle Game.
Knuckle Time, I was thinking too. For Knuckle Time would be sweet too.
Knuckle Time would be very. But see, I didn't do that one. I got Knuckle Game.
Someone's got Knuckle Time. I'll try to buy it from them.
Yeah, they should.
All right, Luke. Thanks so much, man. We'll be checking you out, and we'll hopefully talk to you down the road, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. See you.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.